So it's time to cook. But what are we cooking? We are cooking our data this time around. So welcome to episode 9 of On Your Road to Becoming a Data Analyst even with zero tech skill. So if you've been following this series closely, one thing I've been doing is try to relate everything I do to something that everybody can relate with. Because my main target is to ensure that even a 10-year-old can listen to this, then understand and can explain what data analytics or data analysis is all about almost in detail. So that is why I'll be using very relative terms. Okay, so in the last episode, which was episode 8, I started talking about the 5 steps we have the data analytical process, and I started with the statement that this process is like you following a recipe, right? You want to make a particular meal, then you have to follow a recipe, and of course if a step is missing, what happens? The end result, right? You're going to see that effect in that end result. So we're talking about you collect your data, you clean your data, and of course you're going to watch the episode and you get more information on how I was able to explain that in a very simple term. So in this episode, we move straight to the third step, which is what? Analyze. And that was why I said initially that now you cook your data, right? Because we have been using food, we have been using a meal as an example of what data analysis is all about. So after you've gotten your food stuff, then you've cleaned, washed your food stuff, washed your vegetable, rinsed your rice, every other thing you want to do. What do you do next? Then you start cooking. Same thing with data analysis, right? So after you've gotten your data, you've cleaned your data, you've ensured that your data is free of errors, data quality check, you've done all of that, right? What is next is you analyzing your data. Now, this analyzing your data is the same thing as cooking. That's what I'm saying here. So that is where your skills now comes in, using the various tools that we have. We have Excel, we have Power BI, we have SQL, we have Python. Of course, we have Python library that we use, pandas, NumPy, matplotlib, seaborn, etc. So all that is left for you at this stage is for you to now cook, right? Cooking requires skills, right? If you are not skilled, you cannot cook well. Same thing, if you are not skilled, you cannot analyze data properly. So you see people pay for classes just to learn how to make jollof rice. You see people pay for classes just to learn how to make pasta. You see people pay for several classes just to learn how to cook. Same thing with data analysis. You see people paying huge amounts of money just to learn how to analyze data, because it is also a skill you need to learn. And of course, we have various tools, just like I mentioned earlier on. So the next step is what? Cooking. So after you collected your data, you clean your data, what happens? You analyze your data. And there's where cooking comes in. Just like you went to the market, you got your food stuff. After getting your food stuff, you came back home, you had to wash everything, clean it. And after washing, what next? You don't dump it somewhere, right? You pick it up and then you start cooking. So that is a third step in the data analytical process. Now, what is the next one is what you now visualize, right? Now, visualize here is you showing your results using a particular graph, right, that represents whatever you have analyzed. Now, basically, your job as a data analyst, right, is to make things that looks complex, right, is to make them less complex, basically. If you as a data analyst, after you completed your job, somebody that is non-technical, if the person sees your work and does not understand what is there, then you have failed as a data analyst. It is that simple. So your stakeholders, let me put it that way, people that do not have a knowledge of functions, people do not have knowledge of codes, if they pick your analysis, right, whatever you've done, and merely looking at it, you don't understand whatever is there, right, you have failed as a data analyst, basically. So your job actually is to make sense out of something that looks like nonsense. Like I always say that data is noise, right? So what is noise? Noise is an unpleasant sound. Is it totally bad? No. Because that same noise, if you add rhythm to it, it becomes meaningful. And that is what? Music. Because you've added rhythm to that particular noise. So same thing with data. Data is like noise. When you now analyze it, what happens? You've added rhythm to that data. So now it makes sense. So the same thing as a data analyst. After you analyze, you visualize so that we can see. And just taking a glance at it, we can see, oh, this is what is actually all about. Or we can see that, oh, on a Monday we have higher sales, on a Saturday we have low sales. You can see all of that. You can see, oh, this particular product is bringing in more revenue than this. You can see all of that, right? It makes it very easy for you to, at a glance, see whatever your data is saying. So basically, that is a third step in the data analytical process. The first is the fact that you have to collect your data, you have to clean your data, you have to analyze your data. And the fourth, which I just said, is that you have to visualize your data so that we can see whatever you have done, we can see it clearly. And the aim is so that somebody that is not technical, somebody that does not know all the functions that you know, somebody that does not have all the skills that you have as a data analyst, picks up whatever you have done and they can like, oh wow, see this is what is actually going on. If you have not done that as a data analyst, right, then you have failed. And as a data analyst, that is actually the end result. That is your goal. Your goal is not to use a lot of functions. Of course, while working, you have to apply a lot of skills if the data set you are working demands all of that. But the end goal is so that you are solving a problem. I mentioned in my previous video what data analysis helps us to do. Helps us to answer questions. So at the end of the day, if you are not answering questions, if you are not solving any problem, then you have failed as a data analyst. So I'll see you in my next episode. I remain Oluwaseun. Take care.